Welcome to the Florida Man vs. the World podcast. I'm your humble Florida man, Craig Schwerin, respected journalist, college-educated suburbanite, and the unsolicited ambassador of Florida to the United States. Today, for my third episode of my interview series, I interview Tucker Claremont, someone who has experienced pretty much everything that there is to experience as a Disney World enthusiast. Tucker is my former student in AP Seminar, and why did I want to interview him? First of all, he has all these unique Disney experiences that us average Joes cannot dream of having. And he knows more about Disney than anyone that I know, by far. He will be attending Florida Southern University in Lakeland, Florida in the fall. He'll major in theater with the goal of working at Disney after graduation. With every eventual interview of mine, as I expand the catalog of interviews, I want to interview someone with a unique experience in the Florida cinematic universe, and Disney very much falls in the Florida cinematic universe. Each of these 3 episodes so far have dealt with the Orlando theme parks, but eventually I will expand beyond Orlando and go beyond the topics of the theme parks. Tucker fits into the mold of a Floridian with unique experiences. Here are some specific examples. Tucker has gone to the luxury hotel suite in Cinderella Castle in Magic Kingdom, which very few people have visited. Tucker has toured the secret underground tunnels in Magic Kingdom, called Utilidors. Tucker has viewed the animals at Animal Kingdom at nighttime in night vision goggles. Tucker has visited most of the Disney resorts around the world, including the 4 parks at Disney World in Florida, the 2 parks at Disneyland in California, the 2 parks at Disneyland Paris, and the 2 parks at Disneyland Tokyo. If there's something to do at Disney, Tucker has likely done it. If there's something to see at Disney, Tucker has likely seen it. Without further ado, here's my guest today, Tucker Claremont. So, I'm interviewing my former student, Tucker Claremont. I taught Tucker sophomore year in AP Seminar, and the reason I wanted to talk to him, you're my third person I've interviewed. I've interviewed my friend from high school, from CSN, Frank. I was a lifer with him at CSN, and we've been to Disney and Orlando a lot, so we just talked about that, and we have interest in the new theme parks in the Middle East, like Disneyland, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia is opening the largest roller coaster in the world in the middle of the desert. So he and I talked about that. Then I interviewed the guy Andrew Platt, who went viral for a video on YouTube about how Disney World cured his depression, moving from Utah to Orlando. And now it's you. And I wanted to talk to you because when you were in my class, you wrote a research project about Disney and people working at Disney. And I knew you had the most unique experiences out of anyone that I knew with Disney. Being in Florida, we know a lot of people with annual passes that go to Disney and Universal a lot, but you kind of are way beyond everyone else because some of these experiences that you've done are much more than even someone who considers themselves a big Disney patron would have. And I'll list off some of the ones that you've told me, and I kind of want to know if there's anything else I'm forgetting that you've already told me. But I have you, and I think you said this was like the most unique thing you did was going through Cinderella Castle in the hotel room, right, in the suite. And you said how many people have done that before?
I would say probably at least in the last 5 years, probably less than 1,000 people have walked through that room.
Okay. And how new is that? Is that a recent addition? I know, didn't Walt Disney used to stay there? Well, he didn't stay there, but because he died, but he was planning on staying there when he visited the park.
Yeah, I think actually when the park opened, that suite was like, if you called 1-800-DISNEY, those people were answering in that room. And then I think in the late 90s, they changed it into a hotel room that people could stay in.
And then you have experience with D23 for multiple years, right? How long have you been going to D23?
The last 3 years.
That's basically the big convention that Disney has every year to announce all their new projects, but that spans beyond just parks. It's everything, right? That's movies and TV shows and cruise ships, every part of their portfolio, right?
Yes, everything. Movies all the way to parks, cruise ships, everything.
So you've seen everything there. You consume everything there. And then your Animal Kingdom safari, what was that specifically?
So
we'll go more in depth in each of these, but I'm just curious what that is.
Sure. It's as part of Animal Kingdom, they have in the Africa section, it's called Kilimanjaro Safaris, and it's about a 20-minute safari ride that takes you through all different types of climates with all different types of animals that Disney has acquired from all over across the world. And the tour that I took, Wild Africa Trek, is you kind of do a part like ropes course slash like walking trail through the parts of the safari that the ride does not go through.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that
Hmm.
I think the statistic there is that safari is what is it? It's called the Serengeti. What is it called? I've heard there's a name for it, but that safari is bigger than Magic Kingdom, right? I think it's a
It is.
huge property. So there's so much that you actually don't see on the tour, and animals you probably don't see. And then your VIP tour at Disney, which is uh, where you pay to go for 8 hours, I believe, right? And you get to go through Lightning Lane, go near the front of the line for pretty much every ride, and they take you behind each of the rides, and you drive. Uh, do, do you ever go underneath the utilidors? You don't do that, right? You just go into the back of.
Well, I would say so. There is a separate tour, Keys to the Kingdom, which I did 2 years ago. That is focused on the utilidors, but the VIP tour it mainly focuses on you driving through all those backstage roads, so you don't have to walk in the front
Yeah,
entrances or everything.
yeah, and it saves a lot of time. And then you've been to. I've only been to the Disney parks in Florida and then Disneyland in California, but you've been to ones that I haven't been to. You're the only person I've know that's been to. You said France and Japan, right?
Correct.
Okay, but
Yes.
you haven't been to the ones in Shanghai and Hong Kong.
Correct.
Would
Yeah.
you ever plan to go? Would you ever want to go to those ones?
I would. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
want to finish it out in Abu Dhabi whenever that happens. So yeah,
in
all
like
that.
10 years. Well, you can go to
Yes.
Australia. Um, an Epic Universe, which you're the one who made me want to go. I was always planning to go, and I've always very much wanted to go because I've been following it for like ever since they announced it for like the past 5 years. But you told me, oh, there's no lines here on opening day, and the next day I'm like, I have to get up there. There's no lines, and I went with my friend for 2 days. So that was a very worthwhile trip for me because I think the lines are very long now. So I think we experienced a very brief moment in that park's history that'll never happen again, where the lines are so short. Um, I also wanted to ask you like which hotels you've been to on property because I think that's people forget about. That's just as much of a theming because Disney is very good at theming. That's the whole point of Disney World. That's a big part of it too. Is like how they've themed all their different hotels. I assume you've been to a lot of different ones, right?
I have been to quite a couple. Yeah.
Okay. And then you said the Seeds tour in Epcot. Well, what is
Hmm.
that? Is that the Department of Agriculture uh and the Living with the Land section?
Yes. It's a 1 hour tour. I think it's like $25 a person. It's like the most affordable tour on property by far. But it's you go through Living with the Land, that little boat ride that goes through the greenhouses in
Yeah.
the land pavilion, and you essentially get to like walk behind the plants, and they give you like an earpiece, and you get to like listen and kind of learn about how they operate that building, which is very interesting, I will say.
Um so can anyone do that?
Yeah,
Like is
anyone.
that just okay, so that's not like it's not like the VIP tour is much you have to do more steps to get there, right?
Yes, that's like they open those up, I think 60 days prior, and people just like launch at them. But this is like on a normal day, you could just walk up to the kiosk in the land pavilion and be like, "Can I be in the next store?" And they'll be like, "Yeah."
So is there just a lot of people that don't do that when they go to Epcot? They don't even know because I didn't even know about that until you just told
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And what was the Segway ride?
The Segway is probably the most odd thing I've done there. It's basically they have the Fort Wilderness campground that is
Yep.
in the northwest part of property that is full of cabins and like places you can bring your RV and all that stuff. And the Segway tours, you hop in a Segway and you kind of drive through the whole campground and you get to see like the horse grounds and drive around part of the lake, the Bay Lake that's right there. So it's very different, but it's kind of fun. Segways are always fun.
You're too young to have experienced this, but are you aware of the cow that used to live on Fort Wilderness with the Mickey pattern on its body?
I think I heard about it. I haven't heard that much about it though.
Minnie Moo. I think I saw it as a baby, but I don't remember because I guess she died in 2001. But she lived 17 years, and she had they imported her from like a farm in Minnesota because she had the Mickey Mouse design as a hidden Mickey that was just obviously out of chance that happened when she was born. So I guess I want to start with, how did you first get involved with Disney? Like, how did you become, because you seem like someone who's like really loves the parks and everything. How did you become someone that's so passionate about Disney World and I guess theme parks in general?
I think it's funny because it starts with Universal.
Okay.
Um, I never really went to. I mean, I went to theme parks when I was little, and my parents tried it out. It was like, oh, you might like it, whatever. I didn't remember it when I
How long
went
have you lived
to
in Florida?
my whole life.
Okay.
I just recently moved in the last 2 weeks. Before that, I lived in the same house my whole life in Naples, Florida.
But you moved to somewhere move closer to Orlando and Lakeland, right?
Yes,
Because you're going to go to school and you go to college in Lakeland. You just graduated high school in Florida
correct.
Southern, which is I've been to Florida Southern campus to take the tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright houses, which is it's a very cool campus. Very quiet town, Lakeland. And so can you continue, like, you've lived there? I was born in Naples too, so that's kind of just part of being in Florida, I think, is that theme parks are always in the background. And even if you're not like super, even if you don't go very much, you just always know they're there. But it seems like most people, like, as long as they can afford it, like they go. A lot of people have annual passes, and it's just kind of a part. And I think it is cheaper to go to a theme park when you live in Florida because you don't need to buy plane tickets. So I think the only place that's kind of analogous to it is Southern California because they have Disneyland and all the other theme parks. But I guess continue, like, how Universal got you into Disney.
Yeah, I kind of grew up as a water park fan, so I used to. That was my thing. I used to go to Disney's water parks and stuff, but I really fell in love with Universal's Volcano Bay, which came out 2017, and it kind of
Yeah.
changed the way that water parks operate in the world by adding like digital wristbands and stuff instead of waiting in line. So
The
I
Tapu
really
Tapu bands, right?
the Tapu Tapu, yeah,
I've never been to Volcano Bay, but that's some place I'd like to go.
yes. So I really fell in love with that, and we took a couple trips like 2017 through when COVID hit, and then in 2021 we were going to go back after like they changed the mask rules and stuff, and we were like, oh, we should spend a day at the other two parks, like Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, and they had a really big deal going on because it was kind of that weird part in COVID where tourism was really low.
Yeah.
And we got a really, really good deal on Universal's VIP experience product that they have
Yeah.
for their two other parks. And I just kind of fell in love with the parks after taking that tour that one day. And then after spending a year or two going to Universal all the time, you're like, we should probably try and do the same thing with Disney. And then from there, it kind of launched into this kind of love for all the Disney parks around the world.
And then, so when was the first time though you went to these parks? Did you go when you were little? Like, you'd been to Disney World before, right?
I have, yeah. I went once or twice when I was like 6 or 7, but I don't
Uh,
remember it.
Oh, okay. So you don't even. So how old were you when you went back to Disney for the first time?
It was December 2021. So my freshman year of high school
So
was my,
were you born in 2007 or 2006?
yes,
So you were
2007.
14 years old when you went.
Yes.
Okay. That's just so strange to me. I mean, obviously I'm older than you by 9 years, but the fact that, like, I mean, you're way deeper into Disney than I ever have been, but Disney's just kind of been a part of my life since I was little. Like, we would go every 2 years or so, and we would go to all the parks. And I know a lot. I've just accrued a lot of knowledge about it. And Universal, I would go every year for Meal to Theta. We would go every year to Universal and Islands of Adventure. But it's weird that it seems like most people are very young when they get involved, but obviously 10 years old was when you first got involved with theme parks, and that was just for the water park. And then you didn't start getting into Disney and Universal until like eighth grade, ninth grade. So I think it's very interesting that it went so quickly, I guess, within the 4 years of high school versus most people. It's like from there when they're little. Like, you've probably been to Disney more times than me now, but like, it probably took a while for you to overtake me, I'd assume.
Yeah.
Um, so Cinderella Castle, how did you end up going to Cinderella Castle?
So this actually kind of ties into the story I was kind of already telling, where I went to Disney the first time, December 2021, and then we were like, we need to go back. Like we did a tour there, and it was kind of it was really odd because when you take a tour, when the first time you go to a place, you don't really get a good grasp of what it's like because you don't go through the normal environments
Yeah.
that a normal person goes through. So, and I went on rides that I wouldn't like if I picked what rides I wanted to go on today would not be the rides I picked 4 years ago because I had no idea about what the parks were like at that point in time.
So you're going
So,
in with limited information for these.
yes.
Okay. And
hmm
which rides did you want to go to that you feel like you wouldn't have picked now at Universal?
I would say, well, in terms of Disney, I would say
Oh,
when I
Are you talking about the Disney VIP? Oh, this
Disney,
is Disney
yes,
VIP. Okay, yeah. Well, how did your
yes,
taste change?
I would say I when I signed up for it, I was like, I'm just gonna pick. I went on the website. It's like, what are the 15 most thrilling rides? And I was like,
Okay.
there. That's what I picked. But then I didn't realize there was like stuff like Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean that like they are like nostalgia things that people
Yeah.
have, and like
Yeah.
those are really good rides. Like I have to go on those rides every time I go to those parks now. So that's kind of a little side note I have for that. But going back to Cinderella Castle, they had a limited edition tour that they had that I took in February of 2022, and I think they only ran it for like 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, and it was you went up in the Cinderella Castle and you saw a little bit parts of the Utilidor, and it was a really odd experience because you went on a couple rides and you saw a couple sightseeing things, but I just think it's crazy that I wasn't even a big Disney fan at the time, and I had this experience of going in this room that people for decades have been like ganging up to like try and break down the door and go in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just like, oh, I went there.
I think there's people that would pay like people would pay like 100,000. Celebrities would pay $100,000 just to stay the night in
They
this
would.
hotel.
They
Yeah.
would.
Like I know Ariana Grande is famously a very big Disney fan. Has she been there? I don't know if she seems
I
like someone that's been there before. I don't know which celebrities have stayed there. I know some, but it seems like or the other thing I've seen is Make a Wish. Doesn't Make a Wish like get people to stay there, kids to stay there? I think I've seen
That's
that
the
too.
main way.
Yeah.
That's like the main way people get in is it's like through a lottery that they do rarely, or it's mainly just Make a Wish kids and their families that get to stay there.
Yeah, because I think it's like fundraisers too, that the charity fundraisers, they auction that off. I don't think they want to make it some commodified thing, even though they could make a bunch of money from just one night. I bet they could sell it for like tens of thousands of dollars a night forever.
hmm
So this was a VIP, was this a normal VIP tour and this was just part of it?
No, it's the same like staff because VIP tours at Disney and a lot of the tours they're all under this branch called Signature Services, and they deal with like all the celebrities that visit the parks and stuff. Those team of people, but and it was through them, but it wasn't your typical VIP tour. It was like I think it was 5 hours, 4 hours, and you went on a few rides, and then you just saw a couple of sightseeing things,
But it
and it
was
was
only
all
Magic
with the
Kingdom.
VIP Magic Kingdom. And there was, I think there was one ride at Epcot that you went on. You drove to Epcot just to ride like Ratatouille, and then it was it.
Well, what ride was it at Epcot? Was it Guardians of the
Remy.
Galaxy? Oh,
It
Remy.
was
Okay, the Ratatouille ride. Okay.
yeah. Guardians didn't exist at that time.
Oh yeah, Cosmic Rewind hadn't opened yet.
Yeah.
I've actually never been. I've been on most Disney rides. I've not been because I feel like when I go, I'm not. I don't have an annual pass, so I'm not going that often. Like I feel like I need to re-hit the rides that I like. Haunted Mansion. Like I'm always going to Haunted Mansion. And then like some Epcot. I have not been on Frozen. I've not been on Remy. I think those are the only rides at Epcot. But there's not many rides at Epcot. I've been on Cosmic Rewind and Test Track and Mission Space. But yeah, I just like you said, Haunted Mansion. That's something I remember as a kid. And I remember being so scared for Haunted Mansion as a little kid. Like I'm closing my eyes at the scene when you go through the graveyard. And then
hmm
when you're like, well, it's like when you're older, like, how was I scared of this? Like and I, we'll talk about this later, I guess, but Monsters Unchained, that's like something I was scared of when I went on a few weeks ago. Like the scene when Phantom of the Opera like stares at you. That was like in the Gill Man jumping out at you. So that was something that was scary to me, but it's a very similar. It's like when I went to Haunted Mansion when I was like 6 years old, it seemed like Monsters Unchained. Like it seemed that crazy to me. So could have anyone have done this Cinderella Castle tour? There was no but just not many people knew about it. How did you find out about it?
We were just trying to find something like fun to do for a couple hours when we were visiting Magic Kingdom, and we're like, okay, we will take this 4 or 5 hour tour. And I mean, it wasn't like the same price point as the normal VIP tour. It was kind
Yeah.
of like it was somewhere like in the middle
Was
of
it? It
their
was
price point.
cheaper. It was cheaper than it, right? Or
Yeah, it's a much shorter duration. So yeah,
yeah. Okay.
and then it was shocking that we were able to get into that room, and it was just kind of like a meant to be moment. It's like something I can always bring up at like I don't know, like at a party if I'm ever or something. It's just like yeah, I went there.
Did
And,
did you not realize that because you said this at the beginning of you liking theme parks in Orlando? Did you not realize at the time how exclusive this was?
oh, I had no idea. I had
You thought
no idea.
anyone could go to Cinderella Castle?
I probably did.
So
And
was
then I
this
learned like a year later that it was like, holy crap, no one's gone there, and I've been there.
was it 2022? You said
hmm
so. This was I mean, this was post like any restrictions at Disney World, right? For COVID.
No, they still had masks. You had to wear masks indoors, but not outdoors in
So like
2022.
if you're in line at Haunted Mansion, like you have to put the mask on in the ride. But they
Yep.
weren't doing the distancing, right?
No, I mean, I don't fully remember. I think they're kind of doing it. Not really.
Because it was pretty strict. Like when you would have gone to Universal, I think they had didn't they? I had like spots spaced out on every single ride that you have to stand those 6 feet apart, right? And then
Yeah.
they cleaned every ride after each each person. I think my dad went on that, but I never went. But were the lines like super short at Universal during that time when you went?
They were actually, I thought the crowds at Universal were bigger than Disney's crowds for a little bit because Disney, they wicked limited the crowds and they actually added plexiglass between every row of every ride. Like, not the
Oh,
roller coasters, but like their restrictions were a lot heavier than Universal's because I remember Universal by June, when they opened Velocicoaster June of 2021, there were no masks. And then in 2022, in February, Disney still had masks. So they were definitely behind in the reopening
I may.
stuff.
Do you think that's because of? I mean, I remember there's just a huge controversy. I mean, this is political. The that Disneyland was closed for such a long time, uh, maybe for like until 2022. So I don't know if Disney just had a different perspective on COVID because they have way more. They have Universal as international parks, but it's not as big as Disney. I guess Disneyland reopened on April 30th, 2021, closed for 13 months, which is crazy because Disneyland is the second most visited park in the world behind Magic Kingdom.
hmm
That's just closed for that long. So I don't know if that affected. I don't know why they were more stringent than Universal, or if Universal saw it as an opportunity, kind of to
Yeah.
have an edge over Disney in that way.
hmm
Because that was a time, I guess, in 2021. I thought that was a very important inflection point in Universal's history, where they because from my perspective, when I was growing up, like people are always debating Universal and Disney, and it seemed to me, like I wrote about this, that kids, every kid always wants to be a teenager, and every teenager always wants to be an adult, and they wanted to prove that they're not little kids anymore. And like, I don't want to go to Magic Kingdom. I'm not a little kid, and
Right.
so I want to go to Universal and ride the Hulk, a big ride. And I just never was. I mean, I like the thrilling rides, but I was never impressed with Universal's theming. And I always got the impression that a lot of Universal rides were lazy because they were based on screens. And the only real like ambitious thing they had was Harry Potter that opened in 2011, so that was pretty late. But they only had those like motion simulator rides for a long time, and I felt like 2019 Hagrid's kind of just changed everything with Universal, and then
It did.
Velocicoaster came 2 years later. So I think that was a time when Universal was figuring out ways that they could really compete with Disney. Um, yeah, I remember. I always said like there's really thrilling rides at Disney that people are just as much as any ride at Universal. Like I didn't know this, but Rock and Roller Coaster has more G force than any ride in Orlando. Like it goes to 5 Gs. It's more than Hulk is like 4.5, which was crazy for me to find out. And then I think the most physically
Hmm.
intense ride in Orlando is Mission Space because it's just prolonged G forces. People get sick on that, like more than Velocicoaster. not that I would rather. Mission Space is something that you can only ride at a certain mood because it can be very exhausting. So, tell us what D23 is and how you got involved with that. Is that always in California?
So here's the thing. So D23, if you start from the beginning, D23, it's called D23 because the company was founded in 1923. So it's Disney 23.
Yeah.
And what they do is every 2 years they have a conference in California that typically has about 100,000 tickets sold. And then every interim year in between those 2 years, they have a smaller event in Florida that typically only sells 500 tickets. So it's a very big like stretch and difference between those two events. So I first attended in 2022. I kind of bought the tickets right after I kind of started getting really into all stuff Disney, with all those tours I took and going to the parks more in Florida. And it was just kind of a really cool experience to see such a big like group of people all together that kind of have a common interest for everything Disney and seeing what all the new announcements were. I would say in terms of being 2022, it was kind of the economic downfall of the company. So the announcements were really kind of disappointing that I got to see when I went there. It was every time, like every minute I was there, everyone's like, this was so much worse than last year. This is so much worse than before COVID. It was a lot of like negativity despite like being there and
So
spending the money.
People are like depressed at this event.
Yes, they were. No, it was so funny to be like, oh yeah, Tron is opening in spring 2023, and there'd just be like a moan that just went across the audience.
Wait, what was opening in 2023?
Tron.
Oh, Tron. Yeah. That took like 5 years to build. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So it was kind of a weird entrance into this fandom, but I would say I didn't really get tickets for the 2023 event in Florida because it was impossible. I did go to the shopping event.
With 500 versus 100,000. So yes. Is it like what's the point of the Florida one? What do they do there?
They try and give updates on the stuff that kind of they announced the previous year.
So the big announcements are at the big one in California. And I assume that D23, it shouldn't even, I guess, be called D23 because it sounds like a completely different event. It's is it just kind of like business people, like people that are executives that are at this event? Because 500 is such a small amount of people.
No, it's 500 patrons, but they didn't even invite the CEO when they did it in Florida in 2023.
Chapek wasn't invited?
No, he wasn't. Well, I think it was Iger at the time. I forget who was head.
Okay.
I forget who was CEO at the time, but the CEO did not show up, and it was basically they had the Muppets lead the whole thing. The 2023 event was worse than 2022, but what kind of redeemed all of it was the event I went to last year. And they split the event up between not just the Anaheim Convention Center where it was in 2022, but they also had all these nighttime panels at the Honda Center. And when I tell you, I saw more celebrities than I ever thought I would see in my entire life in 3 days. Like, I did meet some of the ambassadors, which that's kind of that'd be like a dream job for me. Which just means you're just kind of the face of the park in Florida or whatever resort you're working for. And seeing like people like Miley Cyrus and, Harrison Ford, and they get their like legend awards. It's really it makes you realize how like small this community is despite being how large it is.
Oh yeah. They say, okay. Miley Cyrus and Harrison Ford because of it's like anyone who's involved with a Disney film or
company.
Something. Which Harrison Ford's notorious for not appearing at anything Disney related. Like I don't think he even gave his voice for when they built the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland in California. Like he doesn't I don't think he does much at all.
That makes sense because the voice is bad.
Oh yeah, for Indiana Jones. And we're getting a new Indiana Jones ride in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I think that Disney, you're saying it was like the economic downfall. I guess it kind of peaked obviously right before COVID. And I have the stat here. Is that November 26, 2019, Disney stock reached its like peak at the point all-time high at that point at $150.64. I don't know stocks are not everything, but it's kind of like a day-to-day thing to like look at. And it crashed right after that. I mean, everything crashed after that because of COVID, and Disney's obviously very sensitive to that because of it's a service a lot, mostly tourism based, and even movies, like people weren't going to movies. It bottomed out at $77. So that's like almost 50% of the price. And it didn't, or not 50, it's a little bit more than that, but it didn't reach it again until December 10th, 2020, but now it's lower than it was. But that's when I think Chapek left he came in beginning of 2020 before the pandemic, which was like the worst time to start for a CEO. And then they brought Bob Iger's just like waiting in the background, and he came back like 3 years later.
Yeah.
So are there moments, because I know there's like moments where they announce something huge and everyone goes crazy, and then there's things that like people I guess they announced it and then it's not as popular. Like what was the biggest moment you think in 2024 that you saw that people were very excited about? I heard like the Galaxy's Edge announcement was a huge, everyone goes crazy for it. I mean, it's kind of like analogous to me up to there's the WWDC for Apple, has that every year where they announce all their new products, and Apple and Disney have a very close relationship that people don't really know about. Like Steve Jobs became a billionaire because he sold Pixar to Disney. He was the largest stockholder in Disney until he died. But like they announced the iPhone and everyone goes crazy. And they announced the iPad and everyone goes crazy. Was there something last year that was very popular that they announced?
I would say the most like shocking moment, and I think it was the most shocking because no one saw it coming at all. These people, the Disney rumor community is insane. The
Yeah.
people who create rumors, like universal wishes that they had those people, because like it's a crazy. Everyone already knows everything before it happens.
Because they're
So the
looking at
fact,
like people go into patents like to see,
Mhm.
yeah. So they go way deep into this.
So I would say the most like shocking announcement was the Monsters Inc. coaster that's coming to Hollywood Studios
Yeah.
coming soon. Um, they recently they elaborated more on the Magic Kingdom expansion stuff that's coming. They actually 2 days ago they released a new concept art that fixes all the problems people had with it.
Oh,
Um,
the cars land. Yeah. Piston
yes,
Peak.
Piston Peak. Yes, they. Everyone was complaining you're tearing out the lagoon. Like there's gonna be no water in the park. The park's gonna be ugly because there's no water. There's no lagoon. So they fixed it.
And they're closed. That was the same time they said they're going to close like the steamships and Tom Sawyer Island's getting closed like July 7th or July 6th, I think. Yeah, to start draining the rivers to build the cars land. What were we going to say about D23?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I would. Oh, wait, I need to think about what I was talking about.
It was after you're
Um,
talking about California Adventure and the Tony Stark
yes,
ride.
yes. So we have the Coco ride, the Avatar ride, and the Tony Stark ride, and they're kind of rehauling that whole California resort. And they haven't fully announced the plans for it yet, but the rumor is that the way that Disneyland works is that there's a giant parking garage that exists in kind of, I believe, like the east side of the resort
By the
that
hotel, by the
by the
Disneyland
hotel.
hotel.
hmm And that ginormous parking structure, it fuels both the Disneyland park and the California Adventure Park. And essentially, what they want to do is they recently acquired land on the opposite side of the road. I think probably like 8 years ago, and they're gonna. The problem, what they're gonna do is they're gonna shift that parking garage to the opposite side of the resort. Is the rumor, and they're actually gonna build kind of a third-ish park where the parking garage currently is.
I saw that people were, because there's going to be like a bridge, I think, between California Adventure over the road to the other side where Coco and Pandora are going to be, and it looks like the
Yes.
Pandora and California is going to be way more Because I was like stunned when I first went to Pandora, like in 2018, in Animal Kingdom.
Hmm.
It's going to be more. It's going to be bigger than the one in Animal Kingdom. But they
Definitely.
said people were theorizing that this is going to be a second park or third park, but I don't think it's big enough for that. I think, but it might seem different because you're going over a bridge, right?
Yes. I think
Um,
it's going to be like a separate land inside Cal. I think they're going to have like escalators that like go over the road, like Universal Hollywood or something, and make it part of one of the parks
is that what
or something.
Universal Hollywood does? I've never been there.
If you look up photos of it, you'll be shocked. You basically the park is split in two, and there's like these ginormous escalators that you have to ride for like 10 minutes straight up this mountain to like get from one side of the park to the other way. I think it's called like the Starway or something.
I didn't know that. I know that's a very tiny park, like
Yes, it
land wise,
is.
right? And I mean, does that seem like a theme park to you, or is it like it seems very cramped?
Hmm. I think they're doing it's kind of the only park that's still kind of a movie park
Yeah,
because Universal actually films their movies there. Like Hollywood Studios try to be like a movie park, and now it's not. It was MGM Studios, it's Hollywood
yeah.
Studios now. They tried it, it didn't work. Universal Studios in Florida trying to be like they tried to be a movie studio, but then they gave up on the idea. So the one in California is kind of like the only park that's still a movie park.
Because they have the studio tour, which also has like
Hmm.
animatronics on it, so it's kind of like a ride in a way, right?
Yeah, the studio tour is awesome. I went on it once. It's like an hour long, but it's awesome.
And that's the first Nintendo Land was. Maybe it was Japan. They had the first Nintendo Land, but they have the Nintendo Land there,
Hmm.
which we now have Epic Universe with the addition of the Donkey Kong Country part of it. Um, yeah, eventually I want to go to the Hollywood studio. I mean, the for Disney or the Universal Hollywood Park, Hollywood Studios. Like I was there when it was MGM, and they animated all 100% of Mulan and Lilo and Stitch there. Like there, you could see the animators drawing, which was very cool. But they used to have like how to be a million or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I think recorded there maybe, and then some Universal at Florida. They had the Nickelodeon studios there, so they would film a lot of stuff in Orlando. Um, so keys to the or I guess Animal Kingdom Safari. What did you do at the safari?
At the safari, that was that was kind of a nighttime experience that I did where it was they have the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is it's not really entirely adjoining to the Animal Kingdom theme park. You would think it would be, but it's not. They have their own separate animals that don't cross over between the Kilimanjaro safaris in the hotel.
Yeah,
And essentially, that tour is you go on like a separate, different type of buggy than the ride, but like a smaller, like more Jeep type buggy through the animals exhibits at night at like 11 p.m. And they give you like, um, I guess some sort of like glasses in which you can like see the animals and see what they're doing at night, all the nocturnal
you see
animals.
night vision glasses.
Night vision glasses,
Yeah,
yeah. So, mhm.
I didn't know
So
that.
that was kind of. I mean, it was one of the better tour experiences, but it there wasn't a lot to it. It was kind of just an experience being there, being in the environment type of thing. That's what
I,
that
I
was.
didn't realize that the hotel because I've stayed at the Animal Kingdom Lodge before. I didn't realize that the hotel was the animals there are completely segregated from the ones in Animal Kingdom. They're just like cared for by themselves. What animals
Yeah,
do you remember seeing that were nocturnal? Because it's weird to think that like there's animals that we never see in Animal Kingdom.
I'm not sure if they're not necessarily nocturnal, but it's like you like giraffes and stuff. They sleep for 30 minutes a
Yeah,
day or something. Like
yeah,
so, like you're seeing like a lot of animals like giraffes and zebras and stuff that just they sleep for like an hour a day, so they're always up, they're always moving, you
yeah.
always see them. It's cool to see them in night vision glasses and stuff like that. Actually, the whole first floor of the hotel, there's no rooms on it because they like care for the animals on the first floor of the
Okay.
hotel. They like go in there. So
I used to work at the Naples Zoo, the giraffe exhibit. The giraffes, they sleep
Yes.
30 minutes a day and for 5-minute intervals throughout the day, which is a bizarre sleep schedule. But yeah, they would be up the whole time. Um, I think that's the most unique ride, if you could call it a ride, at Disney. Like, there's no other theme park that has animals to that. I mean, Busch Gardens, but the safari is just huge. Um,
Hmm.
and that's just something that'll never age poorly. Did you ever go to the Animal Kingdom Safari when they had there was a story to it, but there was a story to it. It was like the Jungle Cruise, and they had poachers. You had to fight poachers on the ride. Had you ever experienced that part of the ride?
That was before my time.
That was
So
there was like a dead elephant. It was a very strange. I think that now there's no real there's no story at all to the tour. They're just driving around the safari.
yeah.
Um, so what is Keys to the Kingdom like? You're going to the Utilidor at Magic Kingdom.
Yes. So that tour, it starts on Main Street, and they bring you back. The first thing they do is they bring you like through the park, and they point out different like what they call Easter eggs to different people who worked in the park. So they talk to you about like how on the windows in Main Street they're all different people who were key in building the park.
Yep.
And then what they do is they walk you by over. It was Splash Mountain when I did the tour, but what is now the new Tiana ride, and right there is the entrance to where the parades come out. It's where the parades step out that
Mm.
go in the park. So you walk like through that cast member entrance where the parades go through, over the train tracks, and then they like you get to see them setting up for the parade. So it's really funny because I forget what parade it was, but they have like Ariel, and she's like in her like under the sea float or whatever, and they have to like put her on like a hijack and like shove her up 20 feet and then like strap her in, and it's kind of cool like watching them um like take forklifts and put all the performers on the floats.
Does it take away the magic of like the enchantment of Magic Kingdom when you just see behind the scenes how the sausage is made and like you're in the utilidors or no?
I think it's cool that the way how involved it is, that park. They
Yeah.
built it to be so much more involved than the others. And I think the only downside is the food is worse than the other parks, but I mean, that's one thing. But
You think
I
it's
would
worse?
say,
Like, I mean, Epcot's the best, obviously, but
yeah.
I never associate the other parks with being like particularly different or offer different things. Am I wrong about that?
Magic Kingdom, it's as you said, the most visited theme park in the world.
Yeah.
Um, they every food option is just going to be catering to the masses. So they're going to create things that aren't necessarily good, but are efficient. And they can like how many burgers can we get through in an hour is the
Yeah.
mindset with that park. So it's quantity over quality essentially, and
Yeah.
it's when you walk through the tunnels. It's I mean it's an odd smell because all the trash. They don't have people out in the park picking up trash. It's a vacuum. When you put something in the trash, it sucks down into the ground and then it like shoots through these like tunnels that go over your head in
I
the.
didn't. That's just that's gross. But yeah,
It's like
that's
these giant tubes. They're these giant like galvanized steel tubes. They
that's crazy. I
of
didn't
the
know that.
trash above your head when you walk through. It's kind of crazy.
So how does it work? Like if I go to a trash can at Magic Kingdom, I imagine I'm putting in trash with a big garbage bag, like every other trash can in the world. But then does it suck it out once it's full? Like how does it work? Do you know the mechanism for that?
I think yeah, it waits till it's like full. I think there's probably like a some sensor in there or
Yeah,
something. Once it like hits a certain level, and they just like shove
that's
it through the
crazy.
system.
To think about
Yeah,
how many trash cans there are in Magic Kingdom that are connected to that. Like, that seems like a very complicated system. So I'm thinking
it
about where you
is.
were. That I'm looking at a map of Magic Kingdom right now just to remind myself, and I see a dotted line from Bayou Adventure to the castle and then outward. I assume that's where the parade goes. That's what it doesn't say that on the key to the map, but I assume that's what the parade goes. So is it
Yeah,
coming? It looks like it's the connection between or the intersection between Adventureland and Frontierland. Is that where that's where it is? That's where
that's
the
correct.
parade is? Okay.
And if you're
Um
looking at that, I can tell you, we were there. We were like watching them set up. There's like a warehouse right there, right behind. where that parade sets off, and then we would walk down. We walk down like on the pavement. There's the show building behind Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
These Pirates of the Caribbean, it goes under the railroad halfway through the ride.
I didn't
So
know that.
there's a giant like show building if you're looking on aerial maps behind the ride, and they had like all the boats strapped up, and you got to see like all the operations for that ride, and how they did it. And then I'm pretty sure on the tour, that's like the one ride they bring you on the tour. They bring you on Pirates, and then you spend like the last like hour of the tour just walking through the tunnels, and they would like show you parts of the costuming department, and then you like it's crazy. You like walk through the tunnel for like 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, I probably like walked just from like one ride to the next, and you realize you walk from Big Thunder all the way to Space Mountain in like 5 minutes, and you're like, how? But it's like you're just walking in air conditioning. It feels like you're not walking that far.
Yeah. Are they but every employee uses this. Like if I'm because they don't want you to see any employees walking through the park, like or commuting between Tomorrowland and Adventureland, right?
Yes. Hmm.
So if I worked at Space Mountain, I don't even know where cast member parking is for the park, but I would take a utilidor to that. Or is that everyone go to work at a utilidor?
So it's kind of funny because you, if you're a normal guest going to Magic Kingdom, and Walt Disney designed this before he passed and everything, but you park 2 miles from the park, and then you have to take a monorail or
Yep.
like a boat across the lagoon.
It's the most treacherous park to get to out of the world.
It is. It is. If you work there, if you're a cast member, you do the exact same thing. You park instead of 2 miles south, you park 2 miles north, and then
Okay.
you take a bus to behind
Fantasyland.
to Fantasyland. Yeah, you take a bus to like behind. If you're looking at maps, it's behind the Be Our Guest restaurants, like right behind the castle,
Yeah.
and they have like a Subway right there. They have like a ginormous Subway store. They're like for subs and sandwiches right at the bus stop right there, and then you just walk from there to wherever you need to go in the
What?
park.
This is I'm trying to see what I never know like if I'm going north or south until I'm looking at this map now. So I think Fantasyland 62 is the Be Our Guest restaurant.
Yes.
And then 48 what is Princess Fairy Tale Hall, and then 49 is or 59 is okay. So that's and then the south part is Seven Dwarfs. Okay, so you're behind that. It looks
Hmm.
just like jungle, and that's where everyone enters in through. So then if I worked at Tomorrowland, I would take a utilidor from Fantasyland to Tomorrowland. Like if I worked at
Yeah.
Space Mountain, okay, that's
Hmm.
that's I don't know if there's anything else in the world that's like that because the other parks don't use utilidors, right?
No,
Like
I mean they didn't want to spend that money. No,
yeah,
they
like Disneyland doesn't either. I mean, it's Disneyland and Magic Kingdom are very similar parks. They probably don't do that at the international ones either. I don't know if they use any other utilidors. It's such a unique
no.
thing.
Yeah, they kind of have them at Epcot. I've heard the front half of Epcot has them that they can use, but not the back half, which I think is interesting.
So the what's the park called in the beginning? That's not the World Showcase. I always forget the name of it.
Oh, it's like they changed it. It used to be like Future World, but it's like World Nature, World Celebration, World Discovery. They like split it up, but
So
it's
yeah,
that whole front half of the park that has it.
Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom's the only one in the world that has it. Um,
Hmm.
so speaking of overseas Disney parks, when did you go? Obviously, your first Disney park would be in Florida at Disney World. Uh, what is the succession of you going to the other parks?
Sure. So I went to the Florida parks 2021-ish. It was like kind of my first like exposure. I mean, I went when I was little, but as we already kind of discussed my journey. Then California, I went the first time I went to D23 in 2022. So
Okay.
that would have been like September 2022. Then those two parks. So you have the four in Florida, the two in California. Then last summer, not this summer, summer 2024, I went to Paris and London. And when I went to Paris, I spent a few days at Disneyland Paris, which is two separate parks.
Yeah.
You have the normal park and then the Studios Park, which is probably the most messed up park in the world
They
that
say
they're
that's like
redoing.
by far the worst Disney park, the Walt Disney Studios. They tried
It
to
doesn't
change
look
it.
like it looks like Six Flags. It doesn't look like Disney. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest. I don't know what happened, but those parks, I would say, out of all the resorts, the Paris is the weakest. It
Between
really
Tokyo and Paris.
no between all the parks
Oh, okay.
worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I haven't been everywhere, but I mean, I've seen enough. Paris is definitely the weakest resort, just because it's a certain contract with the French government, in that Disney has to pay a certain amount of taxes that they don't want to pay and stuff. So adding rides and attractions is very tricky there.
It's very expensive compared to the other parks.
Yes, and they don't want to spend the money for it. Tokyo is a very interesting situation. That was actually the first ever international park built in the 80s. They built
Yeah.
Tokyo like right after they built Epcot or something. But the thing about Tokyo is that Disney doesn't pay for it.
Yeah.
It's all
Oriental
it's
Land Company.
Yeah, Oriental Land Company has a contract, and they use Disney's creatives to create the park, but it's all operations and everything are all paid for by the company. So that's why parks like Tokyo DisneySea exist, which is kind of probably the most immersive park in the world until you kind of question that against Epic Universe and stuff. There is no budget for the stuff they have in Tokyo. It didn't feel like a normal Disney park by any means when I went there.
Well,
Very,
the budget's determined by Oriental Land Company, right? So they just say
yes.
they contract. I guess they pay royalties to use the IP, but then they
Hmm.
contract the Imagineers in California to like, we want to build this. You're like, okay, we'll build whatever you want. Like if you just tell us what to build, right? I think that's how it
Exactly.
operates.
Hmm.
And I guess okay, Epcot was 1982 and Tokyo Disneyland was 1983. So did you? So you went. What year did you go to Japan?
I went February this year, so I went February 2025.
So that's when that February break you went to Tokyo Disney.
Yes.
Okay. Um. So what was your? I guess what was your first impression? Was Anaheim the first one you went to beyond Disney World? That was the
Hmm.
first. Okay. So what was your impression going from Disney World to Disneyland, which is the oldest park, but also, I mean, people say Disneyland is the best one because it has more stuff than Magic Kingdom, the best castle park, but it's not as
Yes.
immersive as a resort. It's more like Universal Studios Florida, where it's just like in the middle of Anaheim. Like, what was your
Hmm.
experience going to that? What did you think? First impressions of Disneyland?
First impression was I walked in and I was like, that castle is really tiny,
Yep,
but it's like 45 feet tall. It's like,
it's
whoa.
half the size, or it's at like a quarter the size because Cinderella Castle 200 feet tall or
Yeah,
199 feet
it's
tall.
it's tiny. It's
Yeah,
really tiny.
yeah,
But it's I like it. It's not as busy. You can definitely tell it's has a different audience than Magic Kingdom. I want to say like Florida is like Orlando's just tourists for the most
yeah,
part. The tourist to resident ratio is very different in California
yeah.
versus Florida. Even though California has a lot of parks, they're mostly residents that visit them. So there's a lot of like things that can happen there that can never happen in Florida because tourists are kind of dumb. So like they have a boat ride where they're like, okay, when the ride ends, everyone stand up at the same time or the boat's gonna flip over. Like they couldn't do that in Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's like stuff like that, but it's very, very quaint. I think they did a really, really good job at maintaining their attractions, which I'm really surprised about. I just like that there's so much to do there. Like there's two parks, but each park has 25 rides, which is crazy.
So it's very concentrated because obviously Disney World has way more rides than, I mean, has twice as many parks, but they're all connected. Disneyland Park and California
I
Adventure are right
actually,
next to each other.
Disneyland has more rides than Disney World, which is crazy to
Really?
say.
I didn't
Hmm.
know that. I did not know that.
It's weird, but despite having four parks, there's less rides.
I guess I'll rephrase, say Disney World has more to do, right? Because
Yeah,
there's a
has
lot
more to do.
more
Yeah,
because
it's
there's like Epcot has, you're not riding rides at Epcot. That's not where you're at Epcot. But
mhm.
yeah, that's strange to think about, that it's more rides. It's all concentrated. Um,
Very different. Very different.
I think that's the reason why Disneyland doesn't seem as busy. Even though it's pretty much equal to Magic Kingdom, and they're both around 17 million people a year that go, because there's more rides, so the wait times are spread out more so than in Magic Kingdom. Even though Magic Kingdom has more land, they don't use all the land as much as they do in Disneyland. And did you obviously, like, when I remember going the first time, I think it was 2010, and I was very like interested in going there. My family's from California, so like we were visiting California, and then my mom and my brother like, let's go to Disneyland. We've never been there before. My mom's been there as like a little girl, but there's obviously, most of the rides are like overlap, but there's obviously some unique rides, like there's like the Roger Rabbit ride, Matterhorn. What did you notice in the differences between the rides that they share? Like, what was your first impression on, like, you think a Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean? There's fundamental rides they both share.
Yeah, I think with especially with the older rides, when you think about like Haunted Mansion, Pirates, any of those, they all started in California and then they were copied to put in Florida when
Yeah.
Florida was built. Um, and when they're building Florida, the budget was kind of low. So there's a lot of, like, I would say a lot of times the rides, if there's clones, they're typically better in California. That's just kind of the system. And
Oh
another
yeah.
reason why they're better is because in Florida, if they close a ride, it is horribly detrimental. It's like horribly detrimental to operations. Big Thunder's been closed it's going to be closed for all of 2025, and it's actually
Yeah.
going to kill the park. So
It's gonna kill the park. What?
it's not going to
For
kill
the
the park.
next year, it's gonna be worse.
It's
Like, it's
it's
gonna be worse.
it's going to hurt the crowd flow of the
Yeah.
park for the
Yeah.
next year because that ride is closed.
Yeah.
Um, where in Disneyland, like if they close, that they will close like a third of the rides because it's like okay, they're all pass holders; they can come at the other half of the year. So like if you go to Disneyland in January, like a third of the rides are going to be closed because they're refurbishing them, and because they refurbish the ride so much, like they're all higher quality. They're like stuff works. Like something will break on Tower of Terror and it won't get fixed for 4 years.
Yeah. I didn't think about
So
it that way.
so there's like stuff like that that makes it cooler. And there's more like limited edition stuff because they got to keep people coming back as pass holders and stuff. So stuff changes more. Stuff's like more, it fluctuates more.
Also, I just saw how much later it's open. It's open till midnight, like every night, compared to Magic Kingdom used to be open till like 1 a.m. at certain nights when I was younger, and now seems like the latest it's open is 11 p.m.
Hmm.
I went I went in March and it was open till 11 p.m. like on a Saturday night. But all the other parks are. That's one thing about Disney. Oh, that's one thing I like Magic Kingdom more than any other park in Orlando. It's the only one that's open like the latest, so you can spend more time there. And Magic Kingdom at night, I think, is just way better than during the day. Like if I was at Disney World, I'd go to Animal Kingdom in the morning, and then like Epcot or Hollywood Studios, you could go midday, and then because I don't spend the whole day at a park because I've just done everything, so it's hard for me to stay a whole day at a park at Disney World, and then Magic Kingdom at night. It seems like it's the best time, and especially after the parade, like all the families have gone. Like to go
Oh
to
yeah,
ride, that's like the best move is like during a parade, like to go on a ride if there's a ride you want to go on.
or
But yeah,
fireworks. Fireworks.
yeah,
People go crazy for the fireworks.
yeah.
So like,
But
yeah.
it's so hard. I remember we were there with a mock trial team, and like we were going from we were like in Seven Dwarves to Tiana's, and Tiana's wait time was pretty high throughout the whole day. And then I'm like, if we have to get on it now. We're like running from Fantasyland to Fire Country, and then you're running through all these people, not running, but like you're going through all these people, these crowds, and there's so much noise because then it like the wait time at Tiana's goes from like 60 to 20 at that time. Uh, I guess yeah, people don't realize that like if you have Thunder Mountain's a very popular ride. So if it constantly has average of a 40-minute wait in December, which it'll be closed in December, I guess, which will be that's like the busiest month, I assume, for Disney World. And then that 40 minutes of people has to go somewhere else. So, and even then it's like, I bet people go to Thunder Mountain and then it's closed. And then, oh, we'll just go to Tiana's. And then Tiana's gets too many people. And then Pirates of the Caribbean gets too many people. So there's like this huge domino effect And you're saying that doesn't really happen at Disneyland because there's so much to do. And I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, Disney World has to be more careful when they decide to close rides, more strategic about it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess like some of them are completely the same. Like Galaxy's Edge is going to be the same at both because they're built at the same time, and I guess Splash Mountain and Tiana's is the same. But those older rides, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, they had more money to spend in Disneyland. But Magic Kingdom, they wanted to keep it under budget, right?
Yeah.
I think they took advantage of the fact that Walt Disney died because they like I think his brother Roy was less like idealistic and more economical, and he's like, okay, now we're not going to make Epcot to be like a utopian civilization, and I'm just going to make this park like a budget park. Because if Walt Disney was still alive, I bet it would be even like grander than Disneyland.
No, it
Um,
would be.
yeah, it'd be insane. The plans you've seen the plans for Epcot when it's supposed to be a community, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's crazy.
it's insane
It's crazy.
that
It's
it's
crazy.
like that. But yeah, because you think about how much unused land there is at Disney World, it's bigger than San Francisco.
Hmm.
So when you went to Tokyo, right? That's the next one you went to.
Yes.
What was your experience at Tokyo? Like you could tell you knew beforehand it wasn't owned by Disney. It was a franchise. Like, could you tell like, oh yeah, this is obviously not owned by Disney. There's these, obviously it's still Disney and there's a lot of parks that are a lot of rides that are at the same, especially Disneyland, Tokyo. Could
Hmm.
you tell very clear differences?
Yes, I think the biggest difference actually has nothing to do with the park. It's that Japanese culture is very, very different from American culture or even like Parisian culture.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that they do in Japan, and this is kind of the Disneyland argument I was making, that like could never work in America. Like it's odd because half the rides, if they have like lines, they won't even have ropes up. They'll have taped lines in the ground.
And
People are
everyone
standing
follows
in.
it.
Hmm.
People are
And
more
it's
obedient. They follow
no,
the rules
everyone's it's
and
crazy. And
respectful.
no, people will get there at 4 a.m. and just stand in the tape and just stand there for 4 hours till the park opens. And it's like, what lives do these people live? But I mean, it's a cultural thing, and the park's cleaner than all the rest. You can obviously tell that, but that's also a culture thing. Um, their safety regulations are a lot stronger. So, like, if you're going on a roller coaster, they'll check your restraint like 3 times because
Okay. Yeah.
there's cultural stuff with that. So it's a lot different with that. But the rides, I would say they're the most immersive out of all of them. The Disneyland park is kind of small there, I will say, actually. The Beauty and the Beast ride and the Winnie the Pooh ride were my favorites. But there's also not a lot of roller coasters. I think there's like 3 roller coasters across the whole resort. There's
So
like,
they'd have Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and then is Journey to the Center of the Earth a roller coaster? You remember DisneySea?
it's Test Track.
Oh, Test Track.
Is
Okay.
It looks different, but it's the same ride system as
Yeah,
Test
yeah,
Track.
it's the same as yeah. But I guess that's a thrill roller coaster. I'm trying to think what the
It
other
is. Yeah, it is.
I'm trying to think what the
And
other roller
then
coaster would be.
Raging Spirits, which it exists in Paris and in Tokyo, but it's an Indiana Jones coaster, but it's like very
Yeah,
compact.
yeah.
Um,
It's outdoors. It kind of looks like
Outdoors.
Donkey Kong Country
It
in
reminds
different
me of Donkey
universe.
Kong Country.
Is that very jerky? Like
Oh,
it's like
it's
yeah.
in Paris. It was crazy jerky. In Tokyo, I mean, they maintain it well, so it's not bad. But it's Donkey Kong Country janky, yes.
Yeah, it looks yeah, I guess they don't in Disney Tokyo, they're more interested in the theming necessarily. So it's much Disney World has to kind of ride a balance in America because they have competition from I mean Universal in Orlando and Southern California has a lot of thrill parks like Knott's Berry Farm and Magic Mountain, Six Flags. So I think maybe also we just prefer thrills culturally. So it
Yes,
seems like to me, I've not been there, but Disneyland Tokyo, even though it's not Disney, it's the most Disney park in a way. Like it's
it
the most,
is.
yeah, which is
It's probably the
strange.
closest to like what people would say what Walt would want or whatever. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
people say stuff like that, it's the most. like the Fantasy Springs, which I'm not sure if you heard of, that opened up last year in Tokyo, and that is, I think it cost them like $3 billion to build it, and I think that's the price tag they put on it. It was ridiculous. But you walk in, and there's only four rides in the land, but they built like Arendelle, like how they built Ministry of Magic or something, and
Yeah.
then like you if you've been on the Epcot ride in
Frozen.
Epcot, the Frozen ride in Epcot. Um, if you want to go on the one there, you're like, okay, so why isn't this in Florida instead of what's in I don't know. It's the theming and the attention to detail is immaculate. You won't find a single like area of the park that isn't like thought through. Like you can't like see backstage areas at all. They hide it completely.
So is that? I mean, I never really thought about the backstage areas at Magic Kingdom. Do we see backstage? We don't because of the utilidors and everything, right? But is that like
No,
the cleanest park in America when it comes to separating the people from the cast members behind the scenes?
um I would say Animal Kingdom is definitely better at it than Magic Kingdom because Magic Kingdom, um, there's a lot of I would say just the environment that they've created with it being like a little kids park. Like every kid has to go to that park. They in their marketing and everything,
Yeah,
it makes it so that it's a melting pot of people. And even though the theming is good throughout, there is kind of they had to step away from some of the theming elements they had. Like they used to have a lot more landscaping. Like Main Street used to be covered with trees and stuff, but they had to change everything to build more pavement. Like if you look up a picture of Main Street 30 years ago and a picture of Main Street today, it doesn't look at all the exact same
we're
because
talking about Disneyland or Magic Kingdom Main Street.
Magic Kingdom,
Oh,
Magic
Magic
Kingdom.
Kingdom. Okay.
Because in Magic Kingdom they had to like add three times as much pavement. So it's the theming I would say is best in Animal Kingdom because it's the least amount of crowds in Disney World, and there's like certain places in the park that they built that are just truly in Africa or truly in Asia. I would
Yeah,
say it's the most immersive like of all the Florida parks.
it's also the newest too. So like
It is the
everything's new,
newest.
which is
Hmm.
strange. I think it's 27 years old. It's the newest Disney park. Like that. That's like Epic Universe. When I went, I was like, there hasn't been a major park opening in Florida since 1999 with Hours of Adventure. So this is kind of like historical that I'm here.
It is
And like,
historic, yeah. It
yeah,
is.
like my dad went to Magic Kingdom the first year it opened when he was a teenager. So like it's the similar being there at the beginning is a very interesting thing.
Yes,
But like I'm looking at Fantasy Springs, and it's basically three different lands within it, right? Because they have the Frozen Land, Rapunzel, and then Peter Pan. So does it
yes.
seem like three different lands when you're in it?
It does. I think they do a very good job of shifting you from place to place. And there's also a hotel
Yeah.
that is nestled in the land. We were trying the whole time to get to stay there one night, and then finally, once we were already in Japan, we were able to move one of our nights to stay at the hotel inside the land. But they do such a crazy job of when you walk in the park, you don't even see Fantasy Springs. You don't see any of it.
That's
And
crazy. You mean
when
when
you're
you're in
in
Disney Sea, right? You can't
in
see
Disney
anything.
Sea, when you're in Disney Sea, in any of the lands, it's the Epic Universe thing. You don't see the other lands. There's a giant volcano that you kind of see in every land, but when you're inside the volcano, you don't see anything. And when you're inside Fantasy Springs, you don't see anything. It's all um, just so immersive with all the different technologies they've added with everything.
Well, the volcanoes, that's the Journey to the Center of the Earth ride, right?
It is.
Okay.
I love that ride. That's a great ride. Really good
So you're
ride.
going really fast in that. That's the same as Test Track. You're going like 70 miles per hour or 60 miles per hour.
I would say it tops at 50. Does not go as fast as Test Track.
Okay. But it's the same. It's
Yeah,
the same. You're essentially on a
same
car.
system. Same system. Yes.
And I'm looking at
But
the
it's
map. Like it looks like because they have I'm looking at the PDF on the Disney website for DisneySea, and they have one page for all the other lands and then a separate page for Fantasy Springs. Is it that much bigger? Like, is it needs its own part of the map?
I think when I was there, they really kind of marketed it as kind of a third theme park inside the second theme park. And
Okay, yeah.
like even though I was there in February, they still had like monorails that were like Fantasy Springs now open and everything. Like the marketing they did for it was ridiculous. And they actually earlier last year when it first opened for like the whole year, they made it impossible for people to get in there, like worse than Florida. Like think if you think about like fast pass systems in Florida being complicated, try Japan. Like actually I don't know what happened there. I, we got on almost all the rides, but it was a
But
struggle.
I've read that like you have to line up like at 5 a.m. to get in and to rope drop a ride. And,
It's
and if you
ridiculous.
don't, you're like screwed and you can't get on any ride the rest of the day. Like, is that accurate? Like, did you have to? Were you going in with that information, or were you saying, "Oh, this is just going to be like Disneyland. It's not going to in America. It's not going to be much different."
I knew that it was a nightmare, so I researched a lot before we went. But I we bought they have vacation packages, and typically in America, like a vacation package is just like okay, you get your tickets of your hotel, and
Yeah,
that's all it is. It's not like you get express with that or something. But there, if you buy a vacation package, it includes several different rides of express. I think it's like you get like 3 or 4 rides a day with your ticket that any ride you want that's included. So
yeah.
you kind of use those on the busiest rides, and then you can, when you get in the park, you can just get the normal fast pass on top of that. But if we didn't pay for all the stuff we paid for, we would have not gotten and everything.
So you think for
But
like because I think that's the locals love. They love maybe even crazier than because we think about how fervent and passionate Disney fans are in America, but I think it's probably even crazier in Japan, right?
oh, it is. Oh,
I-
it's definitely. Yep.
And it's weird to think about the like the other international parks. I hear like the Hong Kong lines are just so short, and they
hmm
like the other park, and then Paris is the same. I think the lines are much lighter in Paris. Is that accurate?
When I went to Paris, it was light. It was very. I mean, the busiest rides had an hour wait, but everything else was 30 minutes.
So
Like,
it's less than Magic Kingdom, right?
oh, for sure.
Okay.
I think Hong Kong they're suffering because there isn't enough people, and I think Paris. I went during a busy time, but even their busy time was less than a normal time in Florida.
And Euro
So
Disney, yeah, when Euro Disney opened, there was lots of backlash in France against it in a way that
yes,
Tokyo just like openly embraced having a Disneyland. Like they loved having Disney when it opened. It was then it be, I think for a while that was the most popular park in the world was Disneyland Tokyo. And then because it's been Disneyland in California and then Disneyland Tokyo and then Magic Kingdom now. Um
I would
so
not be shocked by that. I would definitely not be shocked by that.
how would you because I think that I guess the when we talk about you talk about Epic Universe and Disney Sea, I think the immersive lands in Disney are in America are Pandora and Galaxy's Edge. How would you compare that to Fantasy Springs? Like, is it at a different level, or is it similar to that level of immersion?
I would say it's greater than that.
Okay.
It's more detailed than that because and this might make sense to you if I explain it this way, but if you're walking through like Pandora or something, you see, if you look out in front of you, you see the mountains and stuff. But if you look behind you, it's just greenery and stuff. And I
Oh
feel like if you're
yeah.
walking through Galaxy's Edge, like if you walk in through like the Muppets side or whatever, all of the theming is to the left, but then the right is kind of just this barrier to block you from Toy Story Land or something. So I feel like they're very immersive, yes, and it keeps you in the story, but like it isn't like all surrounding you. It is
Yeah.
at certain points, but it isn't the entire time.
That's one thing I
Um,
noticed, like in Orlando, and I forget which part made me think about this when I went for Epic Universe. Is it seems like even in Epic Universe, I think this happened where the theming is when you're walking in, and then when you're walking out, it's much lighter on theming, right?
yes,
Like,
it's that's how I think about Disney World theming is that it's more intense when you're walking in, but not as intense when you're walking out.
Which is, it's
I
weird to
think.
think it's all the same land, but it's the angle of where you're looking completely changes. I
Oh, it
remember
does.
when I was with my friend in Epic Universe, they have an issue. I mean, Universal has an issue. They just have less land, so I think they use it as efficiently as they could. But we can see like the green wall from Celestial Park for Nintendo Land, and he's like, "Is that what Nintendo Land is? It looks so like cheap." I said, "Well, you're not supposed to see it from there." And then you walk into Nintendo Land, it's like the craziest transition you've ever been to in a land, right? And then you realize, oh, like from here you don't see anything from the outside, right? So you're saying none of
Yes.
that happens at Disney Tokyo.
I would say in Disney Tokyo, everything like around you. I think I was talking about Disney World when I meant like it
Oh,
was like when you're walking in, you only see it, and then when you're walking out, it's lighter.
but yeah,
Um,
At Disney Tokyo, you're surrounded regardless of
you're
where you're
surrounded.
looking.
Hmm.
And is
You
that
are
the same
definitely
as
surrounded.
is that the same at Disneyland Tokyo, or is that mostly a Disney Sea?
Disneyland Tokyo, not really. Disneyland Tokyo just feels like Magic Kingdom but nicer.
Okay.
It's the castle is actually the exact same castle as Florida, just painted a different color. So I mean, it's really and Main Street's indoors, which is odd. But
Yeah.
besides Main Street being indoors, the park just felt like a nicer Magic Kingdom in Florida.
How would you compare it to Disneyland and Anaheim?
Tokyo to Anaheim, you mean? Like
Yeah,
how would I
yeah.
can?
Is it similar? Is Tokyo Disneyland more similar to Anaheim or Magic Kingdom?
It's the most similar to Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
I don't think it's not similar to Anaheim. But Anaheim's really like quaint. I think like
Yeah, it's just older.
everything's smaller, everything's older, and I don't think it makes it worse. I think it makes it like it makes it feel more like more European and more like there's a greenery and little
Yeah.
gardens everywhere, and it's like if you go in like the main like old fantasy land, like if you walk straight through the castle and like go in those like six rides that are all like nestled right there, like in California, it's all very
Like
quaint and
Mr.
everything.
Toads and Peter Pan are like all scrunched in together, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, in
like
Anaheim.
yeah, and then if you go to Tokyo, it's just grand, these grand gardens and vistas, and it's just kind of what Magic Kingdom would be if it had the budget that they wanted. But also, I feel like Tokyo Disneyland needs more rides. Like Magic Kingdom, Magic Kingdom does have 20 something rides, which helps it. But Tokyo
Well,
Disneyland has like 15,
it'd probably
so
need more rides if it was in America, right? But
it
I
would
think
need more rides.
it probably
Yeah,
satisfies the demand for rides in Japan, I'd assume,
it does.
right?
It does.
The Yeah, I think Disneyland is probably my favorite park, singular park. But then, I mean, as a resort, Disney World's better than Disneyland. Like, how would you in America? How would you rank the parks? I guess the six parks in America.
Okay.
If you've thought about this, it's hard
I have thought
sometimes.
about this, but it's really different because it's a mood thing. It's
Yeah.
where I want to be at what time. I think I'm going to do objective and then what I think. I think
Objective.
objectively, these it's different. It's
Yeah.
what I think like personally is not what should be the right answer. But I would say objectively, Disneyland offers the most
Yeah.
out of any singular park. Um, and then I would say probably Magic Kingdom fulfills a pretty similar role. So I think probably Disneyland, then Magic Kingdom. And then I kind of like the second California park in Epcot. I kind of hold it like a similar level
Okay.
because the second California park it's very immersive. It has a lot of rides and everything, but it's also it's very atmospheric and it has that kind of adult culture. Because Disneyland, the whole idea is it's like it's a kids park,
They
and
still
you
don't
can't.
sell alcohol there, I don't think.
They don't. That's the
Yeah.
thing. They won't walk around with alcohol, and that's why like Epcot and that park kind of hold that same position where it's like we need a more adult audience in this park. We're gonna have bars. We're gonna have festivals with like wine booths and food booths and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So those parks kind of have a similar atmospheric thing with that. And then honestly, if I Hollywood Studios typically is my least favorite park. in Florida, which is kind of weird to say, but I just like the crowds and the way they build the park. I just don't like how it is operationally, but I think probably objectively that is the next best ride. And then Animal Kingdom, it doesn't have as much to offer as the other ones. So that kind of ends up being the lowest objectively.
Well, I think it has strangely the most to offer because it's the only one with animals. But I love animals, and some people might not like want to
Exactly.
go. Like, I've been to a zoo before. I don't need to go to Disney to see a zoo, but I love. That's why Animal Kingdom might be my favorite. Like in Orlando, it also seems
That's the
like
thing with me.
it seems like the cleanest park.
It is.
Just because it's newest, and it's more relaxed, and there's the most shade there. I feel like would you
Mhm.
say you're Well, also, I don't think it's crazy to say Hollywood Studios is so low. I thought Hollywood Studios is such a lopsided park where people argue it has the best ride, Rise of the Resistance, which maybe I'd agree with, but the rest of the park just does not seem cohesive at all with theming compared
No.
to the other ones. So
No,
what's
I think it's the lowest in my opinion.
yeah
Hollywood Studios. I mean, I went there yesterday to see the new show because I live up here now.
yeah
But I that park, like, I'm just like, what is happening? What were they on when they built this?
yeah
I I think in cohesion, it's definitely the lowest. And I think if you're just going, if I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm probably going to enjoy myself the most going to Disneyland because the food there is so much better than in Florida. Like those pickles on Main Street go so hard in Disneyland, and then probably like Animal Kingdom, Epcot, then that other California park, California Adventure, and then Magic Kingdom. I just love it because it's huge. But then Hollywood Studios is just like that one park that's just like I could go
yeah. It's
without.
it needed Galaxy's Edge to like set it apart in a way. Like
It did. It
otherwise, there
did.
was nothing. I remember going there. I went with like some fraternity brothers of mine in 2019, right before Galaxy's Edge opened, and
Right.
like we went for like I think 3 days or 2 days at Disney World, and we park hopped, and we didn't ride on everything because I think when you're like college kids, like there's only so many rides at Disney World that you want to go on. But
Hmm.
I was like, we got to go to. They wanted to go to Tower of Terror. I'm like, okay, we can go to Hollywood Studios, but it's like we didn't do anything else. We just like left. We were there for like an hour just to go at Tower of Terror, and then we go to Epcot or something. Like it felt like when I was a kid, like you were only going for Tower of Terror or Rock and Roller Coaster and nothing else. You would just avoid everything else because you think about like, well, I could spend my time like there's better uses of my time at Disney World than at Hollywood Studios. But I do think Rise of the Resistance is the most advanced Disney ride. But I'm just curious, like how that ages compared to, like as you said, Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean are going to appeal to people like forever. I think, like I don't think those will ever get taken away or changed fundamentally. But the Rise of the Resistance, like even how impressive it is, I just worry about like the that no one's going to recognize Kylo Ren in like 15 years because people are always going to associate Star Wars with like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess, like the younger versions of them, and not the sequels. I think Galaxy's Edge was based off of a bet that the sequels were more popular than they were because nothing is based off of the prequels or the original movies in Galaxy's
Right.
Edge. But I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so I don't know. I enjoyed it as not a big Star Wars fan, and I enjoyed it as someone that didn't see any of the. The only one I saw from the sequels was uh, Force Awakens, the first one, and I had no other knowledge, but I loved it for the theming, and I thought very impressed with the grandeur of Rise of the Resistance.
Hmm.
And then when you go to France, or like, what do you think in DisneySea? How early did you get there? Or Disneyland? Is Disneyland Tokyo the same way, where you have to get in super early, or is there less of like a craze for that park?
So they're both the fast pass system. I can briefly explain it. Then this will explain why you have to get in early. Is that the time in which you enter the park, you can reserve your first ride, and every ride fills up like with slots typically by like 11 a.m.
But
for
you
like
can't
fast
do it
passes.
until you're in the park.
You can't do it till you're in the park
Yeah.
until you
Okay.
tap in your ticket. So
Okay.
that's why people get there so early to try and get their their fast passes. But I would say I I think like theming wise and stuff, it really with Tokyo Disneyland, it kind of has that same sort of rush and everything that the sea park has. If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, but I guess you would have enjoyed Disneyland Tokyo less because that you can get that in the U.S.
Hmm.
for the most part. There's not much different about that, right? The rides are like there's no unique rides there that we don't have in the U.S. Right at Disneyland
Well,
Tokyo.
there's two very unique ones. They have Beauty and the Beast and the Winnie the Pooh ride, which
The Honey
both of
Hunt,
those Honey Hunt and
yeah,
I Honey Hunt is it puts the Winnie the Pooh ride in Magic Kingdom to shame.
that's supposed to
Like,
be like one of the best rides in the world. Is the Pooh's Honey
oh,
Hunt?
it was built in 2000. That's the thing that blows my mind. It's
It
a
was the
trackless
first.
ride.
It was the first trackless ride, I think,
For being the
ever.
first trackless ride, are you joking? That thing was insane.
And
That thing is,
it beats out Ratatouille probably, right? And
yeah.
Ratatouille came out in what 2017 or something.
I mean, I like it better. I'm not a Star Wars person. I like it better than Rise of
Galaxy's Edge.
Resistance.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
But that's an unpopular take. But you know,
But
that's
it's
my
weird that
take.
Disney went so long without a trackless dark ride trackless dark ride system
No,
after Winnie the Pooh. Like it
is
took
Pooh is
like
fire.
yeah.
Pooh is so fire.
Is that the one? Is that the ride that you have to rope drop at Disneyland Tokyo?
I rope dropped the fast pass. So like I just like that's the first fast pass.
You get the fast pass because you don't have to run to a ride, right? Is that
Hmm.
okay?
Yeah,
So do you
you,
buy the
you
fast pass like in lightning lanes because they do the multi pass? You get your multi pass like days in advance. Then you pick which three rides you want to do at a single park. Is it the same way? Are you paying
no,
like
it's free. It's
oh it's
just
free?
free.
So it's more similar to the old fast pass system that Disney had.
Yeah,
But you get
it's
to it's
free.
now it's digital because you used to
Hmm.
go. I remember my dad and I would have like the plan of you go to Animal Kingdom and then you uh everyone rushes to go to Mount Everest. This is before Pandora. So you go to Mount Everest, your first ride. You don't ride it. You go get the fast pass, and then you run to the you go to the Kilimanjaro safaris because that's all the animals are waking up, and it's like the best time to go, and not many people are on it. And then you go
Yeah.
back to Mount Everest when your fast pass is the time is for the fast pass. Um, and then how much do you remember about the different? Oh yeah, I guess the lands are the same in Disneyland Tokyo, the World Bazaar instead of the Main Street USA, but they have Tomorrowland, Adventureland, of Western Land is just Frontierland, and Critter Country. They used to have Critter Country in Disneyland in Anaheim, but it became the Bayou Country. But it's the same land with Fantasyland, and Toontown is still in Disneyland, California, I
Yes.
believe, right? Yeah, and that's where Roger Rabbit is. Do they have the Roger
Hmm.
Rabbit ride in Japan?
They do. They do. I didn't
Okay,
go on it, but I'm pretty
cartoon
sure it's a
soon.
clone. I'm pretty sure it's just a
Yeah,
clone of
yeah.
yeah.
They used to have Toontown in Magic Kingdom, but they didn't have any Roger Rabbit ride because you would go to like Minnie's house and Mickey's house and like or Donald's house probably. I forget who
Yeah.
else. How much do you remember about the different lands in Disney Sea? Like if I asked you about each one, could you tell me about it? Because like I'm
Sure. Yeah.
very that's like out of all the parks in the world, like I could probably go without. I probably would eventually want to go to Paris to go to Disneyland in Paris, but like I could skip it. There's so many other things to do in France than go to Disney when I have Disney World so close. Like I
Hmm.
feel like I'm not getting anything better than I could get in Florida or in California, in France. And I have no
Yeah.
plans to go to China anytime soon. But Tokyo, that's like such a unique thing that like I have to go. Um, so you walk into Mediterranean Harbor. That's the first. That's the first land. What is your experience there? That's because all these lands are based off of Disney Sea. They're based off of different aquatic marine areas in different parts of the world, right? I mean, some of them
Yes.
are fantasy that don't exist, but Mediterranean Harbor is based off of a we could imagine Italy, right? So what was that
Yes.
like?
It looks like if you've ever been to Universal's Portofino Hotel, it
Yeah.
looks like that
Okay.
because they actually have their own Portofino hotel. They call it Miracosta, and it's a hotel that is that whole front of the park.
And does that
Um,
open into that opens into the park? So it's like Grand Helios in Epic Universe. You exit into Mediterranean Harbor.
mhm. So like basically, it's kind of like Paris Disney, I guess, where like when you walk in the park, you walk underneath the rooms of the hotel
Okay.
into it. So it's not like Helios where it's at the back; it's like in the front. So like you walk, like the main entrance of the park is under the hotel. So you walk through, and there's this lagoon, and you see the volcano in the back. I forgot what land that's called or whatever. But
Mysterious
there's a
Island. It's a Jules Verne land.
yes. So they have that volcano in the back, and then there's a giant lagoon, and they actually have like boats and stuff. I forget what they're called, but they have like little boat things that go and you pick up people, like a little steamboat, and it drives around the park. So it's like basically a train in that side that park, but on the waterways. So they have
It's
steamboats that take
are
people
they?
to different
That's on
stops.
the gondolas. Are they the gondolas or no?
And there's also those. That they
Yeah.
have a lot of things. They have a electric railway that goes from like one side of the park to the other, but then they also have the boat system that goes in the waterways throughout the
So
park.
is it supposed to be like Venice where you're going on those boats?
Yes.
Okay.
They have those. They have like five different ways to travel around the park.
That's crazy.
They have steamboats. They have the Venice boats. They have the railway. They have all sorts of stuff.
Is that the
So
most is that the biggest use of water? I mean, it's called DisneySea. So but that's the most use of water of any park in the world, I'd assume,
yeah,
right? For it's thematic too. Besides I guess
it's
Hawaii,
also
right?
really cool because the actual park is on the Sea of Japan or whatever. It's on the harbor. So
So
like
you can
when
see it. You can see
they actually mhm. They have
you
a
know that was
replica.
supposed to be in Long Beach, California originally, and that Michael
Really?
Eisner canceled it. Yeah. In the
That's
90s,
cool.
there's a bunch of Michael Eisner parks that didn't happen. Like Westcott
Hmm.
was supposed to be at Anaheim, then he was supposed to have the Disney Sea in Long Beach, and then Disneyland, not Disneyland, Disney's America in Virginia was supposed to be like the America theme park, but all those were scrapped. uh,
America would have been funny. I
yeah,
would want to see America.
it was supposed to be near DC, but there was a huge controversy because like they had to testify in Congress because this is in the 90s because they wanted to build it near a Civil War battlefield, and a bunch of people are saying we don't want Disney to like destroy American history. It was kind of the similar how the French treated Disneyland coming. But that's one of the reasons why it all started with Euro Disney kind of being a real economic failure in the first few years, and Disney had to cancel all these ambitious projects that Michael Eisner wanted to do. And it's the reason why in Animal Kingdom we never got Beastly Kingdom, which was supposed to be like the fantasy part of kind of similar to how I'd assume how Isle of Berk is an epic universe, but there's supposed to be an evil part and a with a dragon roller coaster, like a really big dragon roller coaster, and then a good part with a animatronic unicorn, but that stuff never happened because Disney lost all this money from Europe, and that's why Disney California Adventure had like so few rides at that part. And then you talked about the contract with the French government.
Hmm.
I think that their rule was they had to build two parks, and to satisfy it, they built the cheapest park possible with the Walt
I
Disney
did,
Studios,
yeah.
which is getting renamed to Disney Adventure World or Disney
Hmm.
they're retheming it because they're going to add like Lion King and I forget what other parks they're going to add to that part. But
Yeah.
so the Mediterranean Harbor, are there any rides there or no? There's no like real.
Let me think. I don't think there's any like rides. It's like an entry land. It's like
Yeah,
Islands
it's
of
like
Entry, like Port of Entry. It's just like
yeah.
it's your entrance into the park.
And then you go to American Waterfront and then Tower of Terror's there. And what was your as an American going to Japan? What did you think about the American themed part?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I actually it was like New York. It was cool. They had like the electric railway kind of made it like feel like you're like those elevated subway tracks they have in New York and stuff. It kind of felt like that. I will say they did a good job with that. They have like a model Titanic that they put in front of the harbor
Yeah, I see that on
of
the map.
so that was really cool to see.
Can you go inside it? Is
You
that
can walk. There's a restaurant inside of it. Yeah,
okay?
it was
Uh,
closed when we were there, so we couldn't go in it. But I wanted to.
and what was the Tower of Terror like? I've heard it's like much different from in Florida.
Both Paris and Tokyo, they're both creepier than Florida. I would say
Okay.
it's the same California system where Florida's the only one that goes up, then out, then down, then back.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the other ones just go up in one shaft.
It's just a drop tower. Yeah.
It's just a drop tower. So it was the whole story is that there's like this monkey with like a gem. It was in Japanese, so I was trying to understand it. But there's like this monkey with this green gem, and you're trying to like figure out where the monkey disappeared to. It's like it's a disappearing gem. Like there's an animatronic that actually disappears in the pre-show, and then you like see this monkey on the ride, and he's like this evil demon that's like screaming at you. I didn't really understand what was happening, but it was a cool one. It was a cool version of the ride.
Is is France the one that has like the dead girl ghost? So
Yes.
that's like seems so scary, right?
That was actually probably creepier than Tokyo. The dead girl was creepy, I will say, because it's the girl from in Florida. Because you have the
Yeah, the
family that all
family.
goes in the
Yeah,
elevator. It's just the little girl. She's like, "Are you gonna come back?"
that's
It's
so
like so
scary.
creepy. It's so
How
scary.
how did you feel like it took away from your experience at all that you didn't know Japanese?
They all talk with their hands, like that culture. They're all like, "Oh, like they're like go to row 3," and like they all talk with their hands in real
Yeah.
life.
Well, I
So
guess not necessarily the service workers, but with the like the rides, you didn't feel like that took away anything that you didn't know the language? Because I guess a ride you don't really care about what they're saying necessarily.
no. There's a lot of, I mean, the Beauty and the Beast ride, it's basically like a lot of the rides are like singing, but you know the
Yeah.
song. Like you know what Beauty and the Beast is. You know what's happening. So
Yeah.
it's like
So that's the only English is when they have the songs.
no, the
Is that
songs are in Japanese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually when I was there, this is another tangent, but I saw a Broadway show in Japanese, and it wasn't. I knew the show, so it didn't matter.
What show was it?
Frozen. We
Was that
saw
is that
Frozen.
in was it in Tokyo? Was it in Disneyland? Or it was in
It was
Tokyo?
like in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Yeah, like.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what about what's the because I think about Orlando versus Anaheim and Orlando, like when you go into Disney World, you're completely secluded from Orlando and you kind of forget that you're in Orlando. And then Anaheim, like you're right into the sprawl of Orange County. What is it like going from Tokyo, the city, to Disneyland?
I think they do. I mean, Tokyo is very sprawling, and I think it's the biggest, like, I learned in Human Geo, that's like the largest metropolitan, like,
Yeah.
area in the world. The monorail system is actually, the monorail that goes between the parks in Tokyo is connected to the greater metropolitan
Okay.
train system of Tokyo.
Yeah.
So, like, it's very easy to get from place to place, and it doesn't feel like Disney. It kind of feels weird because Disney is like this pocket of just like open space in a city that is so crammed with people. It's kind of a really odd.
I'm shocked they got that much land so like in the 80s. Like
That's
that
what
seemed
I'm
like
saying. I don't understand that.
I don't know. But they like the Oriental Land Company, I don't know if they own other parks. Like I don't know what else they do besides operate Disneyland.
Yeah, I don't know anything about them really, but it's definitely a lot like Anaheim, where it's just like right in the city. Probably even more than Anaheim. It's close to like mainland Tokyo.
Do you think
It's very
some
close.
people think that ruins the immersion in California? Does that hurt the immersion at all in Disneyland Tokyo?
I mean, you can't see anything. You can't like
Yeah,
when you're
that's
in the
true.
park, you don't see. Tokyo doesn't really have skyscrapers. They're all like it's a lot of buildings that are like 8 stories tall
Now, what
in a
about
row.
in Paris? It's much further away from city center. Like it was built in like a beet field. It's 40 or it's 20 miles away. Is that on a train or do you drive there? Do you take a train from Paris to Disneyland?
You can. If we took like when we went there, we took a bus tour because it was more convenient just to get to the city from the parks and stuff.
Did you stay at the hotel at Disneyland or did you just come from Paris?
I stayed at there's in Paris. There's the Disneyland hotel that they recently renovated before we went, and that is like kind of right above the main park, and we just took a bus tour from there to the city, and it took
How
like 30 minutes.
how secluded
Not
do you
that
think that is? Like as a do you feel like you're in a world in the same way that in Florida? Because that seems like the one who would be the most separated.
I mean, geographically, it's the most secluded, I would say. But I would say the theming is probably the worst of the parks. So it's like when you're in, like if you're when you're in the Studios park, I'll talk about Disneyland, I guess, because the Studios park is might as well call it Six Flags a little bit. Like it's like it's. I think it really struggles with the theming at times, but I feel you can't see anything. when you're in the Disneyland park at all. You're just kind of in each world, and it's really cool.
In Paris, you're
In
saying?
Paris,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. DisneySea Port Discovery. What do you know? Remember that one? I guess
That
Aquatopia.
was yeah. So I'm trying to think. They have a ride that is they're I guess it's kind of like a teacup ride or something where you're on these little buggies and they go around in the water. Um,
Is that what
and that
Aquatopia is?
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay.
I didn't go on it because it had a really long line, but it's like a trackless dark ride, but it's a trackless ride in water.
Okay.
So
That's
I didn't
that's
really.
weird.
It's
That's
cool.
interesting. Uh,
It's the self-driving boats, I guess, which I don't understand how that works, but it works.
in the center, they say the center of the park is all around Mysterious Island, which is the Jules Verne land, and that uh, Mount Prometheus, I guess that's the name of the volcano. That has two huge rides, 20,000 Leagues and Journey to the Center of the Earth. What was that land like?
Yes, I that was my favorite land in the park. I like that better than Fantasy Springs. It um I just love that it's like the rock work is just ginormous. That volcano has to be huge, and they shoot fire out of the top of it. It's so cool. And you walk in, it's this giant, like circular, kind of arena with there's a lagoon. Those boats, those steamboats I was talking about earlier, actually drive through the center of it,
They
and
go
it's
underneath it,
all
yeah.
they go underneath it, yeah. And they have um, all these like copper, like rusted, like steel bars everywhere. That's kind of all the railings and everything. And Journey to the Center of the Earth, I would actually, we're talking about Epic Universe. I mean, the beginning of that ride is a lot like Monsters Unchained with the theming. Because you have all these, like, it shows you all these monsters in the center of the Earth, and they're like
Oh, yeah.
shooting fire and like shooting water at you. And it's
Is it
very like,
scary?
it would scare kids. It would
Okay.
definitely
I
scare
guess
kids.
when I say scary for a theme park ride, I mean like if you are 8 years old, would you be scared? That's what I like. My metric is.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely scary, the front half of it, and then like there's one monster that's like go go, and then it shoots you out of the top of the volcano and does a little test track thing before going back.
And 20,000 Leagues, that's the same, I guess, as what it was in Florida, but you don't remember what it was like in Florida.
It's I think it's different though because in Florida it was an actual like submarine.
Yeah.
This is not a submarine. It's I guess it's like a simulator because it's what they did was they kind of created, how can I explain this? It's like Peter Pan's flight where you know how you're dangling from the ceiling
Yeah.
on the ride. What they did was they just did that, but they made a capsule out of it, and
Or
essentially
like ET too, right?
like ET, yeah. And then they put like windows in your capsule that have screens in them. So the water you're seeing, you see like fake water bubbles, but
Okay.
really it's not. You're not underwater, so it's kind of a simulation thing.
And
That
they
ride.
they got rid of 20,000 Leagues in Magic Kingdom, I think, for the Dwarf's Mine Train. I think, and the one that wouldn't, I don't think I would like the most, but I think is very different is Mermaid Lagoon because it's indoors. And is that like that's Little Mermaid themed from Triton? Her dad is that's her
Yeah,
dad, right? Uh,
it's the most unbelievable, the most shocking land in the park because
why?
you walk in, you see this building, and it's if you look at the outside of it, if you look at pictures of it, it's very like brightly colored. It's very like um, kind of what concept art would look like if something being very like whimsical and everything. And then you walk through inside this building through this hallway, and you just think you're like going to walk into a tiny little ride or something, and then you walk in, and it looks like this ginormous it's this ginormous room that you walk into like a
Yeah.
convention center, and it just has all these kids rides. They have like a Dumbo in there, they have a teacups in there, they have a little boppy ride. They You walk in there and it's huge, and the
So
scale of it is
is
crazy.
that the most like kid land in that park?
Yes,
Okay.
it is the kid land of the park.
Because I think when they made this, they described it as a date park where you go on a date with someone there. I guess kind of like how Epcot is, and it's not because Disneyland is more family oriented. They wanted to make this one more adult oriented, but I guess that's the one. Like Epcot would be difficult to have kids at. Like it's not as kid friendly as the other parks. It's also the one that surrounds itself around alcohol. And then Arabian Coast is like Aladdin. And did you went on Sinbad's, right?
Yes.
What did you think about that one?
That was sleeper hit of the park. It was really, it's odd because the ride had no lines, and the Tokyo lines are no joke. So I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know how good this ride's going to be if there's no line for it. But it was really just a kind of sleeper hit of a ride, and the animatronics were huge. They're probably the biggest animatronics I've ever seen. Like, and it's I don't understand really what was happening, but it's kind of like this tiger, this like baby tiger who's like your protagonist, and he's like going through his like journey, and then these there's this giant animatronic of like this, I guess a gnome or something, and he had a giant nose ring. I don't know, ginormous, like 50-foot animatronic. Really, really odd ride, but the theming was good. I will say.
I've heard it's like a mix between it's a Small World and Pirates of the Caribbean. Is that a fair
It is. It is.
comparison?
That's a very good. It's a very good like way to describe it.
Because you're on a boat, right? But it's like an Arabian version of Pirates of the Caribbean. But like it looks like the animatronics look more cartoonish than they do in Pirates of the
Yes,
Caribbean.
they're very cartoonish characters. So that's a really good way to describe it. Yeah.
Storybook. Yes, the storybook voyage. And then Lost River Delta, that's the final one after Fantasy Springs. That has the Indiana Jones ride, I
Right.
presume, right?
Yes.
What was
They
that
have
like?
that. So I mean, Indiana Jones. I like the California one better. That was like I went on the ride. It's the same thing as California. Um, just rougher, which
Yeah.
was kind of shocking for everything else in the park. And then Raging Spirits is the same thing in Paris. It's kind of it doesn't really have a lot of theming. It's really kind of the least themed ride in that park, but it's basically just a roller coaster that's kind of rough, like Donkey Kong at Epic Universe per se. And there is a loop in it, but it's not that smooth or anything. It just you kind of just go around the thing.
Did you see I guess going to France, did you see the dragon underneath Cinderella's castle?
Yes,
What did you
that
think
was very
about
cool.
that? So that's like the most unique castle, right? I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I liked it. I liked it. Most of the parks, I'm pretty sure every single park except Florida, they have a walkthrough thing you can
Yeah.
do in the castle. Like
Yeah.
Florida has like a restaurant, so they don't have that. But that was very cool. Like when you walk on Main Street and there's like this road, there's like this little path that bears left, and you like walk like underneath. Like you definitely go down like 2 stories underneath the normal park to see the animatronic. It's very cool.
The craziest one that doesn't exist anymore is do you know what the ride used to be at the Cinderella Castle in Tokyo? It used to be it was a horror themed attraction underneath where you see there's like a devil. You have to like fight a devil. It's a walkthrough ride though. It's based off of the Black Cauldron. You know what the Black Cauldron is?
No, I don't. Let me
That
look
was
at that.
the first PG rated Disney movie, but
Okay.
it was kind of a darker like cartoon. But it's kind of you're like fighting a demon underneath the Cinderella castle in Tokyo. Uh, what do you think
Oh,
Abu Dhabi is going to be like? That's apparently going to be all indoors because of the heat and the UAE. Do you think I think it's going to be an interesting park. It's the same setup as Japan, where it's actually owned by another company, but they're contracting Disney to design it and to Imagineer it.
yes. I think it's very it's interesting. But once I looked into it, I kind of the main thing to realize is that it's going to be operated and kind of mostly owned by Moral,
Yeah,
which Moral, unlike Oriental Land Company, they have experience in the market.
yeah,
And I think another particular thing is that when you think about Disney parks are always the first to come to an area, and then everything builds up around it. Like if you think about Florida, Disney came, and then Universal and everything else came. Think about Paris. They built Paris, and then there's other parks that went around it. Tokyo, like they build parks in their own
Hmm.
pockets of land, where they're building this new park in a pocket of land that is already dominated by several other theme parks.
Yeah, they have SeaWorld and then the Ferrari World, and I think they have the Warner Brothers land. So that's all
Right.
morale, and they're
Hmm.
adding Disneyland, which I get. It's very interesting to me, like these Middle Eastern countries that want to. It's the UAE and Saudi Arabia want to go into tourism, and I'm just curious, like how many people are going to go to this park, and like the Saudi government's investing so much money in this one Six Flags to have like the craziest roller coasters and the Dragon Ball Z park. And I'm just curious how many people they say that's what Bob Iger said is like there's like within an 8 hour flight or 4 hour flight, there's like this meant hundreds of millions of people that could go to this park. It's like the most accessible in the world. Like it still seems like very hard to get to Abu Dhabi. I wonder how much how much attendance it's going to get. And people are saying that it is a threat though to Disneyland Paris because there's a lot of people in Europe now that can go to. There's Abu Dhabi in the south, and then Universal's opening Universal Studios London, which is going
Right.
to take a lot of people from Britain prevent them from going to France. So I'm curious how that plays into like the European market. Um,
Hmm.
I guess final topic I guess I would talk about is Epic Universe. What were your thoughts about Epic Universe generally?
I mean, I think my biggest shock, and this has nothing to do with the park, was just the crowds. There was really
Yeah.
an unprecedented lack of people the two times I went. Because I went during previews, and previews, I would say, for being a preview, the crowds were pretty normal. It wasn't bad. I mean, I think everything was 40 minutes ish,
Yeah.
every ride. But then opening day, like they were just sending empty trains in every ride because there was no people, which made no sense to me. But I would say that overall, my overall experience of the park is that I definitely think it's the best Universal park
Yeah.
that's in Florida. I think it definitely surpasses a lot of what Disney does. If you're comparing it, I think their theming is incredible that they've added in each of the worlds. I think if you like stepping in the Ministry of Magic, it's like, okay, this is the future of theming. This is the future
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what theme parks are going to be. And that ride, I went on it before they kind of changed it and made it a little bit more dull in the last week. Um, they got rid of a giant drop in the ride that used to be there. They
Apparently that's
changed.
returned this week.
Oh, it's returned.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it has. I don't
I
know.
guess I wouldn't have experienced that, right? If I went for the
You probably
opening
didn't
weekend.
experience the
Yeah.
drop. The drop is very, very cool.
It's like a
But
Tower of Terror type drop. Not as
it
big,
is.
but or it's more like
Yes.
Rise of the Resistance drop when you drop in Rise of the Resistance, maybe.
Hmm. Hmm. But I think the queue, if you look at like the queue for that ride, even before I rode it, I've never seen something just so breathtaking.
Yeah.
Like even in Tokyo, like Tokyo, even though their rides are very good, I would argue that their queues were not. They were very stylized, but they full of like Easter eggs and stuff like to see. Not so much.
Do you think that's
Um,
because it's the cultural difference? I guess DisneySea, like the theming is so intense, but the focus is not the rides, so they don't think about theming the queues as much. And Universal, there's so much focus on rides. Do you think that's part of the reason why, like, they're focusing on the queues so much at
I think in
Universal?
Japan, people will wait in the line regardless. They don't care if there's anything to look
Yeah,
at or not.
Americans
So
need to have be stimulated. Like that queue is like 7 hours worth of line. I
it
think.
is. It's crazy. It's crazy. Um, and then I also just like the park. I like how there's water everywhere. I like how there's gardens everywhere. All like the Bellagio fountains they have at the center. Those are gorgeous. I mean, they have all sorts of stuff. Um, and I just think the whole concept of the portal really kind of fixes the problem we were talking about before of lands being good when you walk in, but not as good when you're walking out
Yeah.
because they can really refine the environment and that like it doesn't have that like theming problem that Hollywood Studios kind of has where it's just a hodgepodge of just stuff. Everything kind of has its own continuity. Um, and I'm really excited. And I think that Universal has done a wonderful job theming this park and especially with monsters and stuff, like leaning into what people have been asking for years on end. And I think the biggest problem with the park is that they just need to add more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's
It's but it is crazy how much it has for like the first
exactly. I
opening.
agree.
No park is like that really, as that much
No.
then opens. Well, what are those things that people are asking for? You think that Epic Universe delivered on?
Um, I think the biggest thing they delivered on was creating Halloween Horror Nights is probably one of their biggest funding events that
Yeah,
they do every year. And I think as much as people like Harry Potter, they also like Halloween Horror Nights.
horror. Yeah,
And I think that what they've created with that Monsters Rise kind of a love letter to all those people who have supported that the last 30 years. And I think I do think it's the best ride in the park. I think they really did a
yeah.
wonderful
I think
job.
Monsters Unchained beats Ministry of Magic. Strange,
Hmm.
and it's strange to see like there's 180-minute waits. Like Ministry of Magic is obviously like very impressive, but I think when I write a ride, I think about like, well, how's this going to be in like 10 years, 20 years? And I just fear that Harry Potter is just not going to age as well as like those monsters are going to be. Frankenstein's going to be recognizable forever, and the Mummy is going to be recognizable forever. And like I'm kind of surprised they did this because the Fantastic Beast films I don't think were as popular, right, as they thought they're going to be, because that was supposed to be all based. It is based off of Paris, but the ride is not. And they had to make some convoluted storyline how they went from the Flu Network transports you through time and space to Ministry of Magic to England in the 1990s. But the like that Dolores Umbridge, that actress, I forget her name, but that movie was 17 years ago, and like that's such a specific part of the movie, and I don't know how many people are going to recognize that like in the future if kids, specifically kids that didn't grow up with Harry Potter. Like
Hmm.
that scene came out like when you were a baby, right? So like you're an adult now. Like so it's a very old it's a very old story. So that's what I think about. Dark Universe uses animatronics that are going to age well, but it also uses screens in a much more supportive way than more than Universal's done in the past. That ride might be my favorite ride. Like I think my favorite ride ever might be Hagrid's. Uh, but the Monsters ride is like the best dark ride, I think. Probably. I don't know. I mean,
I agree.
it's hard to compare it to Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean, which have been around forever. And like
Hmm.
they've obviously, I think, like if I think about what a good ride is, I think you should look at like how popular it is, like how let the people tell you how much they like it. And Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion have had consistently long lines for 70 years. So that must say something about the ride, right? Beyond of like if we try to think about, but it's yeah. Um, was that your favorite land? That was my favorite ride, but I don't know if that was my favorite land.
I don't really know what my favorite land is. I think the werewolf coaster didn't do a lot for me. That's next to it.
Yeah,
I mean, that was originally, if you look at concept art, that was a last minute decision by the park to add a roller coaster there.
I think they just
Um,
needed more rides to disperse the crowds.
I actually think it was because the main roller coaster, the Stardust,
Yeah.
those are manufactured by Mock, and I bet
Oh,
that Mock was like, "Oh yeah, if you buy another roller coaster, we'll give you a discount, like or something." I
yeah.
bet.
Were all the rides by Mock too? Like,
No, I don't think they were. I'm not sure who Donkey Kong. I don't know who did that. But I know those two were. And then Hiccups is Intamin, which Intamin did Velocicoaster
Hagrid's,
Hagrid's.
yeah.
So that's like I think it was a contractual thing that how they got that other ride. But in terms of favorite land, How to Train Your Dragon is really good, I will
Yeah.
say.
Does that remind you of that seems like something that could be a Disney Sea from what
It
I
does.
hear.
That land could be in DisneySea, and I would believe it.
It
Like
looks
I.
is that kind of like how Fantasy Springs is in a way?
Mhm.
Uh that might be the most visually impressive, and I actually never seen How to Train Your Dragon, and I was very impressed by it. I think Hiccup's Wing Gliders is going to be like one of the staples of the park. Because that's just a family coaster. It's very similar to Hagrid's. They obviously the lot of the beats in the ride. It seems like they completely were not ripped off Hagrid's because it's a universe. It's not ripping it off, but it's just because you have a narration from a character, Hiccup, right? He's voicing it just like Hagrid did, and you can see creatures, and they like the scene where he goes in. Hagrid's is more thrilling. The scene when you go inside I don't know if it's a cave or the forest, but then the same thing with there's a kind of a thrilling moment in Hiccup Wing Gliders where you go through the eggs of the dragons. They're like, oh yeah, this won't be an issue, and it's more kid friendly, but it seemed like the story of that ride is very similar to Hagrid's, which is
Yeah,
like the
that's
most
like
popular ride in the world. I think like it's always a 102-hour wait for
yeah,
six
I think.
years.
hmm Yeah, I think they did a wonderful job with that ride. That ride is definitely of the rides in the park that will definitely age one of the best. I
Yeah,
think, and that land will age very well because that's a unlike some of the other stuff like with Harry Potter. I feel like How to Train Your Dragon is probably a newer franchise.
yeah, yeah.
It is definitely a newer franchise, and I think um, the meet and greet that they created with the
Animatronic drag, yeah, toothless
people
drag.
petting the animatronics, like I think I'm surprised legally they were able to do that. Kind of
Why?
honestly,
Why?
like I don't know, but I mean they've. I think they did a great job trying to make a wonderful experience that people are going to like with that.
Yeah, that's a very diverse land. Like there's different stuff to do. I
Yes.
think the rides that age the best, I think, are themed roller coasters because roller coasters will always be popular. But like, I think Hagrid's will always be popular. This will always be popular. And I also try to think if you're going to use IP, uh, if I didn't see if I'd never watched the IP, never watched the movie, how much would I appreciate the land? And like, I never saw How to Train Your Dragon. Like, because you think about like you're bringing your mom or your grandma to a park, and everyone recognizes all the Disney characters. Everyone knows who Cinderella is. Everyone knows all those characters. But as you're bringing in, not everyone's going to know Harry Potter actually. Like, and especially not everyone's going to know all the Nintendo references. Like, if you did not know a reference, could you appreciate the park? And I think Galaxy's Edge suffers from the fact that you might need to know about Star Wars to kind of appreciate fully. Pandora, you don't ever have to know Avatar at all to to like that land. And I think How to Train Your Dragon does the. I think every land that does that very well in Epic Universe. Like even Nintendo, if you've never played a Nintendo game, how immersive it is. You seem completely locked in this world. Monsters, those are technically IPs, but that's like 100-year-old IP from Universal. So I don't think those will age at all. That's the same thing as Frankenstein is as recognizable as Mickey Mouse, right? Like or Dracula, like the idea of Dracula is just as recognizable as that. That's why I say the worst land and the one they put the most money in actually is Harry Potter. Like I think that's going to be the one that ages the most. I could see people are always going to watch the Harry Potter with Daniel Radcliffe, but they're going to go in and be confused like, well, what is this part of the world? Like Paris? Why is it Paris? And people are going to have to look, oh, there was a movie franchise based off of Paris. And they're going to forget
hmm
like what it was, I think.
No, I think that's the most confusing because I mean I did watch that movie, but the thing is, even the movie that Paris was based off of is it's a very insignificant part of the movie that they pulled that main land
Okay.
from. Like it's
Yeah.
actually, I think it's 20 seconds of a sweeping shot of the main guy, and they like took that 20-second sweeping shot and was like, we're gonna make a whole land off 20 seconds.
Don't they spend more time in America? Because the main character is, he's not
Oh, they do.
American. Yeah.
Yeah, they.
It's mostly in America, right?
It's mostly New York. The whole like, yeah, it's mostly New York.
And then Celestial Park. What was your experience with Celestial Park? Stardust Racers. Do you think that's better than Velocicoaster?
Right now, I think maybe yeah, because I think Velocicoaster. I like Velocicoaster a lot, but my experience and how much I like it depends on what row I'm sitting on. Like
Yeah.
if I'm in the front and I'm in the back, it's two very different experiences, and I definitely prefer the front versus the back. So I
I think
think the coaster's more well rounded than
I rode Velocicoaster the same night because I needed to compare them in Hagrid's, and I thought that I kind of came to the conclusion I like Velocicoaster more because the water element. You're going over the water, and they don't have that with Stardust Racers. You're just kind of over like grass. But the dueling
Yes.
element is very unique. I think also that's another example of a land that I think you don't. Dinosaurs are always going to be recognizable. Like even if you don't know uh, Jurassic Park, I think dinosaurs will always be a recognizable thing. Um, and then I'm trying to think of any other. I think that's all the rides. I guess the Nintendo rides. The one ride I just did not like was the Mario Kart ride. I think that's going to age terribly because I think that technology is going to look terrible. He looks bad now. It looks like it's aged bad now. I think it would be better if they just made it a dark ride. Like my friend said, it would have been better if he just took off. He ended up taking off the glasses, just looked at the animatronics, and that was a better experience. They try to play the game.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't have a problem with the glasses, but I think for little kids, like the glasses are really heavy.
And the
The
the ride is so complicated. Like I don't understand the rules of the ride. Like
no,
Men in
I
Black and Buzz Lightyear make so much more sense. You're like, shoot this thing and you'll get points.
I've been on it like twice, and I still don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I think like when they do the Rainbow Road stuff, like that's like the technology's cool, but
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Too
There's too
much
much
stuff is happening.
stimulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking for like 2 hours, so I'm gonna let you go. But we talked
Okay.
a lot about Disney, and I'm gonna
Yes, we
stop
did.
recording now. And
Awesome.